Good evening, everyone. As I told you that we would take up the third chapter of Vistas today, that is Journey to the End of the Earth by Tishani Doshi. Before we read, the author asks a question. If you want to know more about the planet's past, present, and future, the Antarctica is the place to go. Bone voice. Early this year, see, the chapter has been presented in the first person narration. Actually, the author was aboard on the ship academic Skoleski with the 54 other researchers. That's why the experience that is shared in the chapter is first hand one. The author says, early this year, I found myself aboard a Russian research vessel means uh, ship, and that undertakes journey for the purpose of research and academics. The name of the ship was the Academic Scholarski, heading towards the coldest, driest, windiest continent in the world, Antarctica. My journey began 13.09 degrees north of equator in Madras. As I told you in my earlier that 13.09 degrees north of equator points to Madras and involved crossing 9 time zones, 6 checkpoints, 3 bodies of water, and at least as many ecospheres. By the time I actually set foot on the Antarctic continent, I had been traveling over 100 hours in a combination of a car, an airplane, and a ship. So, my first emotion on facing Antarctica, expansive white landscape and uninterrupted blue horizon, was relief, followed up with an immediate and profound wonder. Wonder at its immensity, its isolation, but mainly at how there could ever been a time when India and Antarctica were part of the same landmass. So, in the first part of the chapter, the most important thing to note is the feeling of wonder by the author when she set the foot on Antarctic continent for the first time. First of all, she had traveled 100 hours, and it included journey on land by car, in air by aeroplane, and in water by ship. So she traveled on land, in air, and in water. And as she had traveled for 100 hours, for the first time when she saw Antarctic, her emotion was one of wonder. Profound means deep wonder. And she was amazed. She was amazed because Antarctic, when it showed to her, was isolated. There was no human marker to be seen on the continent, and she was also amazed at an idea that there was a time when India and Antarctica were the part of a same landmass. I would like you to go back to the PPT where I showed you the terms. See, this is the ship Academic Scholarski, where the author and other 54 researchers went to Antarctic continent. Then see, this is 13.09 mark on equator, which leads to Madras, from where the author started her journey. And this is a map of time zone of the world. As he says that she covered many time zones. And then for the first time when she set foot on Antarctic continent, it is what she saw. She saw white landscape and blue horizon. Horizon is the line, imaginary line where sky and earth seem to move. See, this line can be called as horizon. So horizon is blue and it was white landscape that she could see. And see, world looked like this before it drifted apart. It was a single landmass. All the continents were joined together, and this landmass was known as Gondwana. Then, see, this is a single landmass, Pangaea, and then Laurasia and Gondwana. See, here in Gondwana there are Africa, South America, India, and Antarctica together. See, both India and Antarctica are joined. This landmass was known as Gondwana, and this is what the modern world looks like. India is here, and Antarctica is at the South Pole here. Now, she would also talk about the Cordilleran folds in the later lesson as well. Let's go back to our lesson now. Now, she talks in the second part of the lesson, she talks about the part of history. When one is there in Antarctica, he is uh, at once or automatically reminded of that he has become the part of a history, and that history started 650 million years ago. A giant amalgamated southern supercontinent Gondwana did indeed exist. See, uh, I showed you in the PPT just now that this is the these are the northern continent, Laurasia, and Gondwana is the southern landmass. Go back to 650 million years ago, a giant amalgamated southern supercontinent, Gondwana, did indeed exist, centered roughly around the present day Antarctica. Things were quite different then. Humans had not arrived on the global scene, and the climate was much warmer. See, it is to be noted that 650 million years ago, the climate was warmer. It's not like it is now. Antarctica is a frigid zone, a zone covered with ice. Rather, 650 million years ago, climate was much warmer, hosting a huge variety of flora. Flora means vegetation, and fauna. Fauna means animals. For 500 million years, Gondwana thrived. But around the time when the dinosaurs were wiped out and at the age of the mammals caught underway, the landmass was forced to separate into countries, shaping the globe much as we know it today. To visit Antarctica now is to be a part of that history, to get a grasp of what we have come from and where we could possibly be heading. It's to understand the significance of Cordilleran folds and Precambrian granite shields, ozone and carbon, evolution and extinction. So, when one is in Antarctica, He understands the significance of Cordilleran Fold, which is the basis of the formation of Himalayan mountain. And then he also understands the importance of ozone layer that covers our earth as a shield, and carbon footprint as we know, and greenhouse effect as well. Then evolution of all the species of earth on earth, and extinction, that we keep on presuming how would life come to an extinction on the earth. When you think all that can happen in a million years, it can get up pretty mind boggling. Imagine India pushing northwards, jamming against Asia to buckle its crust and form the Himalayas, South America drifting off to join North America, opening up the Drake Passage to create a cool circumpolar current, keeping Antarctica frigid, desolate, and at the bottom of the earth. I showed you in the PPT earlier as well. See, Cordilleran folds. And then see, this picture shows that India keeps drifting towards northwards 5 to 15 centimeter every year, and that's why mm, there is a shift in the height of Himalayan mountains as well, and we know them as young mountains. And see, this picture shows Drake passes, and next picture shows the Antarctic circumpolar current, which is a clockwise current which flows around Antarctica. And due to this current, landmass connected with Antarctica is away from warm waters, and it is covered with huge ice sheet. Coming back to the lesson again, for sun worshipping South Indian like myself, we know that she belongs to Madras. 2 weeks in a place where 90% of the Earth's total ice volumes are stored is a chilling prospect, not just for the circulatory and metabolic functions, but also for the imagination. See, explains that the experience that she had for 2 weeks there in Antarctica was unimagined while in Madras. It's like walking into a giant ping pong ball devoid of any human markers, no trees, billboards, building. You lose all earthly sense of perspective and time here. So there are no human markers and there is no time sense as well. The visual scale ranges from microscopic to the mighty. Microscopic means tiny microorganism that cannot be seen with naked eyes. These microorganisms are messes and mites, and to the blue whales and icebergs as big as countries. The largest recorded was the size of Belgium. Days go on and on and on in surreal 24-hour austral summer light and a ubiquitous silence. Ubiquitous means all pervasive silence, un interrupted only by the occasional avalanche or calving ice, ice sheet. That means the only sound that was heard there was that of avalanche. Consecrates the place. It's an immersion that will force you to place yourself in the context of art's geographical history. Art's geographical history, as the author has already told us, is 650 million years old. As for humans, the prognosis is not good. When we keep ourselves in the context of Earth's geographical history, that from being a warm Gondwana continent, now Antarctica has become entirely frigid zone. If we put human in that context of geographical history, the prognosis means the presumption or the prediction that we make about the future of human on the earth, it's not good at all. And in the third part of the chapter, she talks about human impact. Human civilization have been around for a paltry 12,000 years. Paltry means insignificant as compared to the magnificent geographical history of the earth, which is 650 million years. So human civilization is only 12,000 years, barely a few seconds on the geographical clock. So if we compare human civilization with Earth's geographical history, it would be like a few seconds in proportion. In that short amount of time, we have managed to create quite a ruckus, etching our dominance over nature with our villages, towns, cities, megacities. The rapid increase of human populations has left us battling with other species for limited resources, and the unmitigated burning of fossil fuels has now created a blanket of carbon dioxide around the world, which is slowly but surely increasing the average global temperature. Climate change is one of the most hotly contested environmental debates of our time. Will the West Antarctic ice sheet melt entirely? Will the Gulf Stream ocean current be disrupted? Will it be the end of the world as we know it? Is either way, maybe or maybe not. Either way, Antarctica is a crucial element in this debate, not just because it's the only place in the world which has never sustained a human population and therefore remains relatively pristine in this respect. Pristine means untouched, virgin in this respect, but more importantly because it holds in its ice cores half million year old carbon record trapped in its layers of ice. So those carbon record can be used for determining the age of Earth by carbon dating. If we want to study and examine Earth's past, present and future, Antarctica is the place to go. Students on ice ground. I was working on the Scholasky aims to do exactly this by taking high school students to the ends of the world by providing them with inspiring educational opportunities which will help them foster a new understanding and respect for our planet. Foster means grow a new kind of consciousness. It's been in operation for 6 years now, headed by Canadian Geoff Green, who got tired of carting celebrities and retired rich curiosity seekers who could only give back in a limited way. So earlier he used to interact with these, but they gave back in a very limited way. Then he started working with student. With student on ice, he offers the future generation of policymaker a life-changing experience. That means he wants students who are still in their budding years, who would be the policymakers of the future, and they would experience a life-changing one. And an age when they are ready to absorb, learn, and most importantly, act. So Geoff Green believes that if students are told about these climatic issues, then they would be able to absorb, means understand, learn, and most importantly act, most importantly make policies that would help in restoring the health of the earth. The reason the program has been so successful is because it's impossible to go anywhere near the South Pole and not be affected by it. See, when we keep talking about global warming sitting in a room, we might not be aware of the deadly consequences. But when one is on Antarctic continent, and when he is surrounded by the ice allwhere, the only idea that one day the ice would melt because of global warming is really awe-inspiring. It's easy to blaze about polar ice cap melting while sitting in comfort zone on our respective latitude and longitude. But when you can visibly see glaciers, when you can actually see glaciers retreating, retreating means diminishing, and ice cells collapsing. Collapsing means uh, breaking down. You begin to realize that the threat of global warming is real. So the program has been very successful just because when one is actually in, when one faces Antarctic ice cap, actually he understands that it is real. Antarctica, because of her simple ecosystem and lack of biodiversity, is the perfect place to study how little changes in the environment can have big repercussions. Repercussion means consequences, deadly results. Take the microscopic phytoplankton. It's phytoplankton is an important metaphor used by the author. Actually, it is those grasses of the sea that nourish and sustain the entire southern sea food chain. These single-cell plants use the sun's energy to assimilate means mix carbon and synthesize. Assimilate means integrate carbon and synthesize organic compound in that wondrous and most important of processes called photosynthesis. So in southern continent, Antarctica, there is no visible vegetation seen, but under the ice sheet there are microplants living and thriving. These are called phytoplankton, and these plants are an important element in the food chain. Let's go back to the PPT and see what that phytoplankton is. See, mazes and might, as it was told, mighty whales, big ice glaciers, and then ice calving and iceberg calving or avalanche that the author has told. Then human impact, the impact of the human on the earth, greenhouse effect, the student on, yes, this is a microorganism, and it is the basis of aquatic food chain. See, this shows that phytoplankton is eaten by zooplankton, then in turn is eaten by fish larvae. Fish larvae is eaten by small fish, and those small fish become the food for the predator, that is the giant whale. Thus, we see that even phytoplankton, if it extincts, if it disappears, then the entire food chain of Antarctic aquatic animal would be disturbed. Then, if there is no phytoplankton, we can never imagine the existence of mighty whales even. Scientists warn that a further depletion in the ozone layer will affect the activities lives of all the marine animals and birds of the region and the global carbon cycle. In the parable of phytoplankton, in the story of phytoplankton, parable means story. there is a great metaphor for existence. There is a great symbol for existence. Take care of small things, and big things will fall into place. Thus, we should take care of even the tiniest of the microorganism, just as phytoplankton or mysis, mites, etc. And bigger things such as whales will already be in the order. Last part, walk on the ocean. My Antarctic experience was full of such epiphanies, such echoes. But the best occurred just short of Antarctic Circle at 65.55 degrees south. We do know that her journey start 13.09 degrees north of equator. Now she is 65.55 degrees south. The Skoleski had managed to wedge herself into a thick white stretch of ice between the peninsula and Tadpole Island, which was preventing us from going any further. The captain decided we were going to turn around and head back north, but before we did, we were all instructed to climb down the gangplank and walk on the sea. Gangplank, I hope that you still remember what gangplank is like. Let me show it to you. Yes, gangplank is a platform made on the ship, which is used for boarding or mounting down, and walk on a scene. So there we were all, 52 of us, kitted out in Gore-Tex and glares, walking on a stark whiteness that seemed to spread out forever. So they wore all these instruments that are shown on the picture. Underneath our feet was a meter thick ice pack, and underneath that 180 meters of living breathing seawater. In the periphery of crab eater, seals were stretching and sunning themselves on ice floes, much like stray dogs will do under the shade of banyan tree. Now she compares in the periphery, in the periphery surrounding, crab eater seals were stretching and having their sun. They were stretching out in sun on ice floes, just like stray dogs do on a summer day in the shade of a banyan tree in Madras. Let me show it to you. Yes. See, these crab eater seals are sunning. They were stretching and sunning themselves on ice floe. And ice floe is the floating ice pack, a large pack of ice which is floating. It was nothing sort of revelation. Everything does indeed connect. Revelation means understanding, means knowing that everything, life everywhere is indeed the same. 9 time zones, 6 checkpoints, 3 bodies of water, and many ecospheres later. I was still wondering about the beauty of balance in the play of our planet. How would it be if Antarctica were to become the warm place that it once used to be? Then all ice would melt. Will we be around to see it? Or would we have to go on the way of the dinosaurs? Or our destiny would be like that of dinosaurs, mammoths, and woolly rhinos? Who is to say? Who is to say means we cannot predict. But after spending 2 weeks with a bunch of teenagers who still have the idealism to save the world, all I can say is that a lot can happen in a million years. But what a difference a day makes. It's important to think what a difference a day makes. weeks that we have been living on this earth for millions of years, and we might survive here for many more million years as well. But can a difference be made in a day? The answer is certainly yes, because those days amalgamated together will make into million years. So whatever harm has been made to earth in those 12,000 years by human can be repaired if we start taking steps to restore our health of the earth today. If we are determined, that can be done. Thank you. Happy reading. Stay safe.